Morning folks, how you doing? It's old Descattys having a cup of the old Darjeeling tea. I've just got back from my morning run as usual. Right, in this video then, it's the Q&A. Q&A, asking Descattys some questions, and he's and getting some answers from his perspective. Had quite a few questions, I suppose. I'm not sure I'll be able to get through them all right now. I might need to sort of maybe do another Q&A at some point just to mix it up a little bit. I'm actually, out of all the videos I've done so far, I'll probably find this one the hardest because it's probably put me on the spot a little bit more. So we'll just jump right in and see how we get on. First question I had from Nick Duffy, and he's asked, how long have you been interested in outdoor stuff and camping? Well, I'm 49 now. I know. I'm 40. You know, you wouldn't think so. I know I look 21, but you know, most of my life, I suppose. Most of my life. I mean, when I really started getting into the outdoors, I suppose my parents were never into it. Never been into camping or anything like that. It's all been from you know, sort of self-motivated, really. I can remember the early days of sort of going on holiday to Malta, because my father's a Maltese descendant, and I always remember back to the days when we used to go camp. Well, not camping as such, but we used to sort of camp down near the beach, near the sea, getting up early in the morning and going octopus hunting, harpooning for octopuses, and I was quite a young age when I was doing that. And cooking stuff on the beach, and you know, and all that kind of stuff. And then it kind of just, you know, it just snowballs from there, I suppose. I can remember watching my nan, my Maltese nan, and for you English folks that might be familiar with all the Carry On films, my late Maltese nan would kind of resemble Hattie Jakes out of the Carry On film, where they went abroad to where they went to Italy or Spain or whatever, and the hotel was just a disaster. And I can always remember my nan sort of and my dad as well going down the market and getting the rabbits. They buy the rabbits live from the market, and then going through the process of actually preparing the rabbits for dinner. For rabbit spaghetti, which is a beautiful meal, which I love, and I've, you know, at a young age, I remember watching my nan and my dad dispatching these rabbits, and that's not to sort of like think that, you know, I've watched animals being killed and I'm going to turn into a serial killer. But it's just the whole, I don't know, it was just the whole process of just sitting there and watching my nan and dad process them, and it sort of just goes from there. You know, I was in Army Cadets. You know, we used to go away camping, doing a lot with the Army Cadets, doing a lot of camping myself as a young man or a young child, you know, a young kid or whatever, and then it just snowballs from there even further. Then, you know, spent time in the army. All the outdoor stuff comes hand in hand anyway. Most of the time you're living under a tarp or a poncho, as it was back then. Leaving that, sort of going in and doing Duke of Edinburgh's Award. I went back to cadets after leaving the forces, back to cadets, and became an instructor. Apart from sort of getting involved with some of the military subjects, teaching young people and stuff like that, my main interest was the outdoors. It was bushcraft. It was not so much the bushcraft, but it was more sort of doing D.O.V. and Duke of Edinburgh's Award, walking, climbing, and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of, you know, in a way sort of all linked to you know, linked to the outdoors and bushcraft, if you want to use that word. I don't really like using that word, bushcraft. I think bushcraft is just a label. To me, bushcraft is more associated with Australia and the African bush, as it were. To me, the outdoors here in the UK, I think it's just countryside pursuits, really, and that's how I like to, you know, that's how I like to, you know, sort of identify it as, even though it has, you know, bushcraft's become a label. Anyway, I'm digressing a little bit. Yeah, so I returned to cadets as an instructor. Also worked for the local council doing Duke of Edinburgh's Award as well, and I was responsible for training kind of training and assessing young people at all 3 levels of the award. And then mainly my involvement was doing the golds, which was the golds who are normally, if you don't know, on the expedition they walk a distance of 50 miles over 4 days, and they would normally do that in an environment in a national park, for example the Peak District, the Lake District, Yorkshire Dales, Snowdonia, Brecon Beacons, Dartmoor, somewhere in a national park within the British Isles. Not so much in Scotland, because it was just too geographically and logistically to sort of travel to Scotland was just a little bit too far. So yeah, I qualified as a summer mountain leader. Also did my single pitch supervising, and basically I did that because I was scared of heights. I was fucking shit scared of heights, and I needed to do that to basically I wouldn't say I've never got over the fear of heights. I can stand up on high buildings and stuff and still look over them, and feel a bit sort of, intimidated by it. But I did it basically to sort of build up the confidence in myself, confidence in the kit that I was using while I was climbing. And I've got a list of stories that I could tell you where I've been in situations where I've almost climbed unaided and stuff like that, and not even realised I've been doing it. So and then to where I am now. I left the Duke of Edinburgh's award with the council simply because I had an issue with one of my other jobs. I got the sack, and because of that, because I was working a different shift pattern as to what I am now. Now I'm working Monday to Friday. And I tend to be doing sort of more stuff for myself now, going out, camping. I like to go and help out with different schools every now and again. I've been invited by Woodlife Trails, brilliant school, tracking school if you know of them. JP and Pablo, probably seen them at the Bushcraft show, at the Wilderness Gathering, and very two knowledgeable chaps, very experienced. And their forte is Pablo tends to be more the tracking side of it all, as well as known as bushcraft as well, and then JP obviously fills the other side of it, and with their team of guys that they've got working with them as well. So I've often been asked to go and sort of just help out, or I just get invited to their weekends. I've helped out with with Breakaway Survival that used to be going. It's given up now. That was a school that was running by Mick Tyler, ex-SAS guy, and I did a course with him back in '91, I think it was, because even as a young child I always wanted to do a survival course when they first come about, when Survival Aids was sort of knocking around, and Survival Aids had this sort of survival course that was around sort of about £300-400, which back then was was obviously a lot of money for my parents to pay out, and they couldn't afford it, so it never happened. So as soon as I sort of you do survival bits in the army, but escape evasion and stuff like that, but when I come out into Civvy Street, because I could obviously now afford it, I went on a survival course, and it was with Breakaway Survival, and I sort of went back and every now and again helped out as an assistant on courses that Mick Tyler was running, but that was mainly with adults, and that's really it. So I've been doing it for kind of most of my life. I'm into shooting. I've got the terrier. I used to work her a little bit. Air rifle shooting, and then just going out and practicing the skills, and practicing and just doing stuff. I actually did run some courses, thinking about it now. I did actually run some courses myself for a couple of the local schools, and one of them ran for sort of 7 years. I was doing quite a lot of courses with them, but unfortunately it all sort of goes with money and stuff like that, and it all fell by the wayside. But I've been able to put my hand in and teach people, or young people, and just pass on some of my knowledge and experience of the outdoors. So I can't really, I'm 49, so I've probably been doing it about for at least 40 years, I suppose. Even probably longer than that. So and that's where it is. So thank you, Nick, for that question. I hope that's sort of clarified a little bit of some of my, how long I've been doing bushcraft, and a few little chapters there of me, sort of like some of my experience. I've got a question from Survival Silly, and Survival Silly has asked, the Sebatron bag, is it still good? Any change to contents? Worthwhile or a piece of shit? Yeah, it's a great bag. I haven't really changed it. I mean, that is really a summer bag. That is a shoulder bag. I've only had it since about June of this year, July of this year, and it really was just a bag that I wanted just to put, as I say, I do have a stove in there, a bottle of water, a bottle of meths, and some other bits and pieces, and poo bags and that for when I take the dog up the quarry and all the rest of it. And it was just nice just to, every now and again, especially on those summery days and summery evenings, it's nice just to go up, have a chill out, break open the stove, get a brew on the go, and then just sit down and watch the sunset and all the rest of it. So yeah, it's still good. I haven't changed any of the contents. Do I think it's worthwhile? Yeah, I don't think it's a piece of shit right now, but I don't think I've really put it through its paces enough to say that it is, the quality of it. But for what I've had so far, it is good. And for £20, I don't know what that in American dollars, that might be maybe a tenner-ish. That's that's cheap as chips. I mean, I was looking at the more expensive range, but then again, I couldn't really justify it because of all my other day sacks and stuff that I've got. So yeah, it's not a bad bit of kit, especially for 20 quid, at the time when I purchased it. Right, I've got a question from Stealth Andy, and Stealth Andy asks, which knives would you say for a beginner in bushcraft? Which knife would I say for a beginner in bushcraft? Right. When I had a quick scan through the questions, I went out in the shed and I brought in my knife box. I grabbed grabbed a few of the old knives out. And for my own personal experience, okay, and this is with my two kids, my daughter, who's now 19, almost 20, training as a paramedic right now, she's at uni, and the boy is Jake, who you've seen in a couple of videos as well. He's kind of not really interested in it. I really try to, sadly, it breaks my heart sometimes, that I really try and get him back into it, try and get him out. He will go camping and that in the summer, but it breaks my heart really. It's not really his thing. Whereas with my daughter, it was. She really did enjoy it. I started her out when she was about 4 years old, and she's really got into it. But anyway, getting back to the question on the knives. Now, when I started with that, with those two kids of mine, when I started them out with knives, I think it's very important though, whether it's a young child or whether it's an adult that's coming into using knives for the first time, the first thing that needs to be taught to a person is about safety, is about handling a knife, understanding the knife as well. I mean, some people, that might sound a little bit sort of like understanding a knife. Well, yeah, it's true. I think you have to understand the shape of the blades, maybe the edge of the bevel, whether it's like a Scandi grind, single bevel, double bevel, and so on and so forth. The shape of the knife, the correct length of the knife, whether it's a folding blade or a fixed blade, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of it, there's a lot of bits and pieces. The real sort of base layer concrete stuff that needs to be laid out first. And then also about when you have got a knife on your person, and when you grab your knife, the next thing you grab next to it, which should be next to it all the time, is either a first aid kit or a roll of sellotape, a roll of like insulating tape or gaffer tape or something like that. Simply because you potentially can cut yourself. It is a cutting tool, okay. And even now, I think no matter how experienced you become in handling a knife, you can always cut yourself. The potential's there. But for me, when I started out the kids with knives, the first knife I started them out with was basically one of these, and it's the Opinel. It's just basically a folding Opinel knife. They both had ones with sort of, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but this is like the red, and they do one in like an orange handle as well, and it's actually, the blade itself is blunt nosed as well. The only thing is with it is obviously just it is a a lockable, not a lockable blade. Okay, but when you're starting out with people, I think just simply, I mean, I used to get the kids just simply give them a stick and let them just sit. Obviously I've showed them how to handle the knife and all the rest of it, and I literally just get them to sit there and start shaving bark off a length of wood, and then from there, especially with the boy, I mean, he loved just making spears, so he'd sit there and just start carving spears, and then wanting to, and even with both of them wanting to sort of put a stick into the fire and burn a stick into the fire. So for me personally, I mean, you know, I started them out with opal knives, okay. And as I say, they had it. I come up with this way when my daughter, especially when this isn't her one, this is mine. But what we come up with an idea at a show one year was, because she had it in her pocket and all the rest of it, and I come up with the idea of having the sheath, so she could put the knife inside the sheath, and also it's got a ferro rod on it, a ferro rod holder as well. And what I did do, Lauren, we went to a leather maker and she actually made her own one. So we gave the guy the sort of sewed him what I wanted, and then Lauren sat there and made her own one. So she actually had, for years, she was using an opal knife, and it wasn't until she got to about. It wasn't until she got up to about 14 or 15 that she actually wanted then to have a Mora knife, and she wanted, because she liked green at the time, she actually had, you know, the sort of simple Mora knife, whereas I've got the orange one here, she's got one in neon green. And I think this is what you then eventually sort of go on to. I mean if I show you my first, this believe it or not, is a Mora. It's a Frost Mora, and I don't know if you can make out the writing that's on there. I don't know if it will pick it up, but basically this was an original Mora, and the handle, it was polycarbonate. The sheath was a black plastic polycarbonate sheath, and what I did was I actually someone showed me how to make a leather sheath, and then what I did eventually was I changed the handle and I put a handle on there which is made of birch. I don't really use it much now. I kind of just keep this is almost a bit of a heirloom for me. It kind of just lives in my knife box. I don't really use it as much as I used to. For me now, my knife is that TBS Wolverine. I love this knife. It's a nice knife. You know, I like the orange. I like bright stuff. I like the bright orange handle. You know, this has got a Scandi grind edge. It's just kind of 4mm thickness on the blade. It's a nice hand grip. You know, sort of a normal bushcraft knife is often said that it's about the length of about 4 fingers thereabouts. I've got a leather sheath with a ferro rod holder on it, and that is kind of what I use. Or I like to use the old Mora. I love, you know, Moras are just cheap, simple, excellent knives, I think, and it took me a long time to sort of you know, change with the knives. I did have a Pucko set which had the bigger blade and a smaller bushcraft knife, and they came into their own. I was on a course some years ago in Sweden, and a lot of guys there had bushcraft knives and all the rest of it, but there was a few of us that had these other type knives, which is basically the Pucko, which kind of takes the place of an axe, and the smaller bushcraft knife, and they just came in, the bigger one just came into its own when it came to chopping down, you know, sort of thicker lumps of wood and stuff like that. And then eventually that, for me, that went to knife heaven. That died, that knife, unfortunately. I broke it once the handle developed to rattle, and then one of the guys, Dave Bliss, who you might have heard his name from Paddles and Polar Bread, the author, he actually refitted the handle onto me, which I was grateful for. And then I was out a little while later chopping through a bit of birch because I was making a rocket stove, just hammered into it with a bit of a gentle persuader, and I thought, cool, that's alright, that's gone through that pretty quick. And then when I looked up, I've still got the handle in my hand and the blade was stuck about halfway down the birch. So that was it. It was, because they're only a stick tang anyway. And that was it. Then it had gone to knife heaven, and Dave now he's got both the blades now, so he's gonna do whatever he wants to them. So I'm just gonna have a sip of the old Darjeeling. yeah, so you know, whatever knife it is, whatever knife you're starting out from, they just, you know, so you know, learn how to handle the knife. Whether it's, even if you have to read it from a book, you know, read it from a book, read it. You know, go on YouTube, look at YouTube. There's tons of videos probably on YouTube that will tell you how to handle a knife. And then if you're lucky enough to know someone that's experienced with, you know, with knife handling and stuff, like that sort of stuff, go to that person and get them to instruct you as well, or book on a course. And there it is really. So yeah, I mean, knife wise, as I say, yeah, if it's for young kids, I think it's not a bad thing to start them out on folding, you know, like on a, if you are going to start them out on a fixed bladed knife. I mean, some of these fixed bladed knives you can get now as well with the end that's round as well, so you know, you've got less chance of, because what sometimes people forget, they know that a knife has an edge, but they sometimes forget about the tip of the blade. So they'll be concentrating on their follow through and all the rest of it when they're actually running the, you know, their sort of wood, whatever they're shaping with their knives. But then they sometimes forget about the tip, and then all of a sudden they've gone through an index finger or a thumb or a palm of their hand or whatever. So yeah, it's getting familiar with that knife and using it as much as possible till it becomes almost second nature to you. You know, you are going to get a nip out of them every now and again, and a cut. It's an occupational hazard. It's a bit like handling stinging nettles. You know, if you handle stinging nettles bare hand, with all the care in the world, you are still going to get a little bit stung from them. Alright, so that's just one of them occupational hazards there. Alright, so Stealth Andy, thank you very much. I hope that answered your question there. Alright, so thanks, mate. And then I'll answer one more question for now. And and this is another one from Survival Silly, and he's asking, any tips on birch water? Any tips on birch water? Any tips on birch water? Well, kind of, you got to, when you're obviously going to go and collect the, I'm assuming, Andy, that you're Survival Silly, that you're actually asking about birch sap, okay, which is survival water, I suppose. Basically, I know down my neck of the woods, in where I live, in the area that I live, that I can normally start tapping the birch trees kind of late February, March, early March. What you want to do is, when you go over and you know, you go into a woodland early spring, go over to a birch tree, have a look at the little buds that are coming up, and basically, before the buds actually sprout, okay, normally what's happening is the birch tree is just drawing up loads of water and sap through the tree to, obviously, you know, to sort of fuel and energize the buds before they break out into life, and then the tree grows again. You know, it's obviously getting nutrients and fluids and all the rest of it from the water, from the roots that are under the ground. So it's a good time then for you to be able to actually go and tap the tree. Now, for me personally, you can just get a knife, stab a knife into it, put a tiny little, almost like a cocktail stick in there, and allow that sap to drip out, and then you can collect it in a container. Normally I do it from about 2 to 3 foot off the floor, but what I've done is I've moved on now, and I'm using, well, I've moved on for quite a few years now, and I wouldn't say I've got an auger, but I've got a drill piece that I actually use, that I'll actually drill into the tree. And then I've got what's called an IPK peg, which is an individual protection kit that used to be part of a kit that used to make trenches in, you know, when I was serving in the army back in the 80s. And they're a nice aluminium peg. And what I've done was I actually drilled the hollow of the peg out to make it thinner. And then I actually tap that into the tree, and then I allow the sap to drip out of that and into my container, which I will often put a piece of muslin cloth or something like that, just to stop insects and debris and everything falling into it. Okay, and then you can leave that for a while until you know, check it back on regular visits while you're out that day. Once you've collected the amount of sap that you want, then what you need to do is then bung that hole up, because what happens is, if you don't, the tree will pretty much bleed to death. So you need to make sure that you basically block that hole up that you're drilling into. Okay. Now the shelf life of the birch sap is quite short, I think. From my own experience, when I've tapped the birch trees, I've done it a few times where I've collected it into tubs, or one tub, I'll put it in the fridge. I thought, right, I'll get back to that at the weekend. And within the week it had already started to develop an algae across the top of it, and when I opened it, Christ, the smell out of it was disgusting. So it has quite a short shelf life. It's not a bad thing to actually collect it straight away and just drink it straight off the tree. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's got a real nice earthy taste to it. It's nice and cold, refreshing. And it's also good to make ice cubes, so literally get it home. You don't need to treat it at all. Literally just pour it into an ice cube tray. Maybe put a sprig of not garlic, put a sprig of mint into each of the ice cube trays, and then pop it in the old freezer. Let them freeze up, and then maybe drop a few into a glass of rum or a single malt or whatever it is. And enjoy it. You know, it's a nice free drink, as it were, from Mother Nature. All right, so there it is, folks. There's 3 questions for now. I've got some more. I'll probably add to them. I'll probably do another one at some point. So I can go back and see if anyone else has popped any other questions. Survival Silly has actually given me another couple there, and Stealth Andy's given me another couple, but I'll probably do that in maybe another Q&A later on. So I hope that was a bit of fun. Kind of put me on the spot, really. And that's it. So thank you for watching. Please let me know your feedback. Let us know what you think, comments wise. Maybe hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to my channel, watching it for the first time, hit the subscribe button and join the madhouse, as it were. Alright, so hope you enjoyed that first Q&A, folks. I'll probably end up doing another one if more questions than that come through, especially. So thank you very much, take care, and stay safe, folks. Have a good one.